fellow South Africans, I'm addressing you this evening.
All your years of paying tax, you helped us overcome our darkest hour. You, along with every other loyal taxpayer, helped build this nation. Thank you for every life you saved and for every risk you braved, for giving our future generation a healthy start. When you saw many of our vulnerable communities, you provided for them. When you saw our healthcare workers on the front lines battling COVID, you rose to the occasion and gave them the tools to save lives. Without your tax compliance, we wouldn't be able to fight a good fight. Thank you for contributing to the important services our vulnerable communities rely on every day. To all taxpayers and traders, continue to pay your tax because it matters to millions of South Africans who depend on it. Your tax matters.
Sanibonani, Botani, Dumelang, Goeienaand. Good evening to all our viewers out there. I am Gina Kongleka, the Program Director. Thank you for joining us on hashtag Your Tax Matters webinar, the platform that was created to empower you with all your tax matters so that you are able to contribute in building this beautiful country of ours. As promised previously, we are back, and today's topic is value-added tax, which is VAT in short. Today's agenda points are welcome address by Ms. Thozi Mazichana, VAT presentation by Ms. Daphne Kobokwe, question and answer session led by Mr. Vikash Genpath, closing remarks by Mr. Pranesh Rampal. As the presenter is presenting and explaining today's topic, we invite you to interact with us using live chat box or post your comment or questions to vatquestions@sars.gov.za. I repeat, it's vetquestions@sars.gov.za. Kindly note that this email will be closed after the webinar. If you still have some questions after this webinar, you can follow our normal process and contact us on contact@sars.gov.za. That is contact us at sars.gov.za. After the presentation, we'd like to receive your feedback, and that you can do by completing the survey that was attached to your invitation. We value your feedback because it will enable us to improve the service we render to you, and it will ensure that these webinars add value to your tax life. Hashtag Your Tax Matters. I would like to remind all our viewers that the due date for submission of personal income tax is fast approaching. Kindly note that the due date for all non-provisional taxpayers is on the 23rd of November 2021. Taxpayers can file their income tax returns via SARS Mobi app or e-filing. We care, and we do not want you to incur penalties and interest due to late or non-submission of your PIT return. Now, I would like to call upon Ms. Thozi Mazichana to welcome our viewers. She is Thozi Mazichana, the Regional Director, Taxpayer Engagement for Free State and Northern Cape. She has held a variety of management positions at SARS over her 35 years of service. Thozi has an MBA, postgraduate diploma in business management from Menkosa, and a diploma in management and taxation from UNISA. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Good afternoon, fellow citizens, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much for this opportunity given to me today. I would like, first of all, to take this opportunity to welcome you all on behalf of our Commissioner, Professor Edward Kisveta, and his entire leadership team. We are meeting today to share with you the importance of value-added tax, VAT. But before sharing this information, allow me, Program Director, to share briefly the journey that the organization embarked on. SARS embarked on a path of rebuilding its organizational capabilities as well as restoration of institutional integrity over the next 5 to 10 years. We've been guided by our SARS Strategic Plan 2020-2025, which informs our strategic intent of developing a tax and customs system that is based on voluntary compliance. To give effect to the SARS strategic intent, we have 9 key strategic objectives, which I would love to highlight briefly for you all. Number 1 is to provide clarity and certainty to taxpayers and traders of their obligation. Number 2 is to make it easy for our taxpayers and traders to comply with this obligation. Do remember, colleagues, that we believe that if you are clear and certain about your tax matters, therefore, definitely you will voluntarily comply, which is our SARS strategic intent. Number 3, we are saying we need to detect taxpayers and traders who do not want to comply and make non-compliance hard and costly. With you all present here today, definitely the fact that you have left your engagements and attend this session, it shows clearly that you want to comply and exactly what we want to see in the entire citizenship of our country. Number 4, we are saying that we need to develop a high-performing, diverse, agile, evolved and engaged workforce. And we do that by upskilling our employees so as to provide quality and a very competitive way of doing business. We are expanding and increasing the use of data in order to ensure integrity and derive insights, colleagues, that will improve the outcomes of what we do. I am definitely sure that you will agree with me that the use of data is very critical nowadays, so as to be led to a focused approach by that data that we are utilizing as an organization. Number 6, we are modernizing our system to provide digital and streamlined online services. Today, we are using webinars, and it is due to COVID-19 that has informed us and made us to be more innovative in how we do things. And we would like to encourage our vendors to really invest on technology and the use of digital and streamlined online services. We are encouraging as an organization in terms of our strategic objective to demonstrate effective resource stewardship, to deliver quality outcomes and performance excellence. We don't want anything less, we want excellence. In so doing, you will help us by giving us feedback, by also sharing with us what do you want us to help you with, and we will do so without any fuss. Number 8, we work with and through stakeholders to improve our tax ecosystem. We will never achieve what we want to achieve in terms of our higher purpose without working with and through you as our stakeholders. And we value your contribution. Even today that we are present here today, we are encouraged. We are feeling very much supported, and we would love to collaborate with you in all that we do. Number 9, and the last strategic objective, we are building trust and confidence in the tax administration. We have learned it the hard way, and we know that for the past 3 years before the last year, we were unable to meet our targets, and it was because of you as our taxpayers and traders. You stopped believing in the tax administration system, and now through our Commissioner, Professor Kisveta, we are changing the tune. We are trying by all means to ensure we build that trust and confidence so as for all our taxpayers and traders to voluntarily comply, and by so doing, adding to our mandate of collecting revenue due. Program Director, allow me to share that all that we are doing, colleagues, we are contributing and we are working towards achieving a higher purpose of enabling the government to build a capable state to foster sustainable economic and social development that serves the well-being of South Africans. If we all pay our fair share of tax, we will never fail our citizens and their well-being. We are further led and guided by our vision of this organization, which we call it Vision 2024, of building a smart modern SARS with unquestionable integrity that can be trusted and admired by all our citizens. Who wouldn't want to be part of a smart organization? Who wouldn't want to be part of a smart modern SARS with unquestionable integrity, trusted and admired by you all? This vision is, in fact, as our commissioner will share with all of you, that it is leading us to the SARS theory of compliance that believes that most of our taxpayers and vendors, they are honest. All they want to simply comply and fulfill their obligation with a simple amount and less cost and less time. That is what we strive to do. We believe that all our taxpayers are honest. All they want to do is to comply. We will achieve this, and we are committed to achieve it through our steward leadership, that we are understanding we are here to serve and not to be served. We are going through partnership and collaboration with all respective stakeholders so as to ensure that we engage, we educate, we inform, and we bring awareness to all our stakeholders.
Sister Z, I think we are losing you. Not sure whether it's from my side.
Legislation, we cannot do that alone. We will do it with you. Program Director, in closing, allow me to share with all our vendors that your tax matters. This is our hashtag. And if you are sitting with somebody next to you, do share and say, dear partner, hashtag your tax matters. And I would like to say, we are all having to promote fiscal citizenship so as to ensure that every rand and everyone pays their fair share. Remember, the receiver is the nation, not SARS. If we all can pay our fair share, the receiver will be the nation. And I want to encourage all of you, as you are relaxing and listening to Daphne sharing the presentation on VAT, please relax and share your inputs, your questions, your comments, so that we can be a better organization that provides for all its citizens. Allow me, Program Director, to thank all the attendees and all the SARS leadership that may be on the line. But I do want again to recommit and rededicate ourselves that we care for our taxpayers, we care for our traders, and we will ensure that we provide the service that you are expecting. And in fact, we want to exceed your expectations because we are very much obsessed with the service that we have to offer. Over to you. Thank you, Program Director, and over to you. And thank you to all the attendees. I'm looking forward to hear from you during this day and any day going forward. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you, Tozi. Thank you, Ms. Masichana, for the warm welcome. Your welcome address puts the viewers at ease and gives some comfort that indeed, hashtag your tax matters is indeed what it says. We'll now cross over to the VAT presentation done by Ms. Daphne Khobokwe. She is Daphne Khobokwe, who holds a BEd honors in educational leadership from RAU. She's a dedicated SARS service ambassador with 15 years experience in various roles within the field of taxpayer service. Daphne is currently a taxpayer service consultant in Northwest Taxpayer Service. Before I hand over to her, I would like to remind all our viewers about our live chat box and our email address that can be used to post questions and or comments. The email address is vatquestions@sars.gov.za. You can post your questions and comments as she is presenting, and we'll respond after her presentation during our question and answer session. Daphne, over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced by the Program Director, My name is Daphne Kobo. As a SARS ambassador, tonight I'm at your service to provide clarity on value-added tax aspects. Ladies and gentlemen, my presentation is as follows. I am going to start first by giving an overview on VAT, registration requirements needed, VAT categories which you can use to submit your returns, the process on how payments are done, the process of claiming your refunds, and lastly, the process to be followed to exit the VAT register. Let me start by explaining to you what value-added tax is. It is an indirect system of taxation of the goods sold and services rendered. A person who is registered or who is obliged to register is referred to as a vendor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm explaining to you the meaning of this word because you'll realize that in my presentation, I'm going to more often than not refer to this word. So I'm just explaining this to you so that you know that when I talk of a vendor, to whom am I referring to? Vendors act as agent of SARS, which means their responsibility is to ensure that they pay over the VAT which they have collected. VAT is charged at a standard rate of 15%, at a standard rate of 15%. It is charged on goods such as meat, white bread, cigarettes, clothing, footwear, hotel accommodation, liquor license, and then also when you have got to sell the alcohol there at our bars, at our liquor restaurants also, the liquor or the sales which you make are going to be taxed at 15%. When you sell those cigarettes, it's going to also be charged a percentage, which is 15%, because these supplies are categorized as standard rated supplies. I was just giving a few examples of those standard rate supplies. Again, it is levied at 0% on the standard, on the supplies such as brown bread, rice, milk, dried beans, fresh fruits and vegetables. Mostly it is on our basic foodstuff. The sale of business or part of a business as a going concern is also falling under the zero rated supplies. But ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand that when we talk of the going concern or the sale of a going concern, it should be happening where the sale of that business, by the time it happens, the business should be active, or I should say the business should be in operation. What do I mean by that? Let's take, for an example, the owner of a garage who at some stage realizes that the sales are not going as good as he or she thought. Then he probably stops selling or start operating the garage. In the process of a month or so, he realizes that he's probably not going to make any money out of this garage. Then he decides to sell it. Ladies and gentlemen, this sale, we're not gonna classify it under zero rated for the mere reason that by the time the transaction was happening, it was not active. Because remember I said it was not operational for a period of a month or so, which means there should be continuity by the time the sale is happening, or by the time the transaction happens, the business should be active and operational. Between the seller and the buyer, they should be registered for VAT, because this is settled as a going concern. And then on this going concern, also, ladies and gentlemen, there should be a written agreement between the seller and the buyer. In that, there must be a clause in their agreement, which specifically indicate that this transaction is for a going concern, and it is going to be taxed at 0%. There is no tax or VAT which is levied on exempt supplies. Examples of exempt supplies are transportation of passengers in the form of trains, buses, or taxis. Also, ladies and gentlemen, educational services of schools and tertiary institutions are categorized under the exempt supplies, which means they cannot be taxed, or the VAT is not going to be levied on those services which are rendered there. We know, ladies and gentlemen, that with us, mostly South Africans, we are waking up until late. And instances where the schools will be off around 1 o'clock or 2, you are still at work. So you might find that you, for example, will need an aftercare service where your child is going to be assisted with homeworks or with additional lessons from what could have been given at school for it to be finalized as homework. Those services which are rendered by the aftercare, it is falling under exempt supplies because no VAT can be levied on such. So those are just a few examples of exempt supply. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to continue with the registration requirements. A person can only register for VAT if he or she is running an enterprise. And what do we mean by an enterprise? An enterprise is an activity carried on a continuous basis or on a regular basis by a person who is staying in the Republic or who is partly in the Republic of South Africa, where goods and services are rendered at a consideration. So, ladies and gentlemen, the emphasis here is on the continuity. There should be continuity and regular activities of business. A person can opt to register for VAT on a voluntary basis, but there are those who are required by law to do so. A person who has got a taxable supply of 1 million rand or more, and that person already exceeded it, which means he's got a 1 million rand turnover or turnover supply, that person qualifies to register for VAT on a compulsory basis because he's already exceeded a 1 million rand on his taxable supply. The other component of traders and taxpayers who qualify to register for VAT on a compulsory basis are the ones who have got a signed contract. And in that contract, it is indicating that they are going to exceed a turnover of 1 million rand in the year. So it must be clearly stated in that contract, the amount indicating how much exactly are they going to get. And that amount should be more than 1 million rand. The other component which qualifies to register for voluntary registration of VAT, it is the non-resident suppliers of certain electronic services. And these services should have already exceeded a taxable supply of 1 million rand. And ladies and gentlemen, the registration should be done within 21 business days from the date of the liability. I need to highlight to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that VAT has got a lot of administrative burdens which needs to be taken care of. If you choose to register for VAT, you'll have to charge it. You'll have to submit returns to SARS on time. You'll have to make payments on time, which you would have collected from the returns which you submitted. You'll have to keep accurate and proper accounting records for at least 5 years. This is important because of in instances where SARS would need evidence of what you have submitted or declared in your return, you should be having those documents at hand. And you must also account for the VAT on the sales which you have made, even though you haven't received the payments from your debtors. So these responsibilities do not only to be carried by the people who were obliged or who have registered for VAT on a compulsory basis. Those people also who register for VAT on voluntary basis need to carry or make sure that the responsibilities are adhered to. Failure to carry all these responsibilities, which I have mentioned, can result in penalties being payable or prosecution, fines, and also, ladies and gentlemen, you can be imprisoned for not carrying the responsibilities as outlined for you as a registered VAT vendor. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, people who opt, or those organizations or taxpayers or traders who opt to register for VAT on a voluntary basis should ensure that they at least meet the minimum requirements of the taxable supply, which exceed 50,000. And they should submit also the proof of their taxable supply to SARS in the form of documents. You cannot just put it inside on your form when you register. Also, you must provide proof for those taxable supplies to convince SARS that you have already exceeded the 50,000 in 12 months. And ladies and gentlemen, there are also those businesses which happens that they should have probably not traded for the whole year or 12 months, the newly operational businesses. Those ones also, if they elect to register for VAT, it means they should be meeting the minimum threshold requirements. But in this case, it might happen that they haven't exceeded the 50,000. Let's take an example of those businesses who have maybe traded for 2 months or 3 months. If they opt to register for VAT, their average taxable supply should be exceeding 4,200 Rand in 2 months, which means whatever they would have made as taxable supply in those 2 months, when added together, divided by 2, it should exceed 4,200 Rand. And those businesses also, which have got a taxable supply and they have traded in less than 12 months, their taxable supply should exceed 4,200 Rand in 1 month. Then at least we'll be convinced that these businesses, in due course, when they reach the 12 months, it is convincing that they will reach the minimum requirement of 50,000 Rand. That is the reason why we would need them to give us this information. Businesses also which has got a signed contract, where in that contract it is indicating that they are going to reach a minimum threshold of 50,000 for voluntary registration, also can qualify to do so. But it should be stated, ladies and gentlemen, that in the contract, the amount is there and the dates are there to show that it is a binding agreement between the people, those who offered a contract together with the business which opt to register for VAT voluntarily, which means there should be a signature for the business which you are going to be trading with. And also, ladies and gentlemen, the amount should be stated in that contract. There are businesses also which happens that because of their type of an activity, it is difficult for them to can give proof immediately in a short space of time that they have exceeded or they are going to reach the 50,000. Those businesses can be businesses like those who deals with agriculture. Because of the capital to be achieved in a short space of time, it's not possible. So those also, if they opt to register for VAT, we can give them the opportunity to do so, but they must provide proof that they are indeed going to reach that type of taxable income. Agricultural activities can give proof of such in a form of like providing evidence that there is readily a land, or they have secured a land and they have done some developments on it. What is it that they have already done to show that they are ready and will be maybe in the near future ready to plant the crops? Then they need to give evidence of such to show that they are in a business which is in the near future going to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, after you have made an option and agreed that you realize with all what I have explained that you see that you want to register for VAT, it means now you need to take responsibility and take everything with to SARS to register for VAT. And the channels through which you can do that, it's when you visit our SARS branch. But remember, we have got to stick to protocol rules of COVID, where we're not supposed to be in a space where there's going to be a lot of people or there's a lot of influx. So we're making sure that we don't visit the branch as much as we can. What you can do, you book an appointment using our appointment systems. An agent and a consultant will communicate with you on your date of the appointment, and it's going to assist you to finalize your VAT registration. The other channel with which you can register for VAT, it's through our e-filing. This is the best option ever, ladies and gentlemen, because you can finalize the whole process at the comfort of your place. You sit, watch TV, you have a cup of coffee or take a glass of juice. In the meantime, you are finalizing the registration, doing business while you are also engaging in a relaxation mode. So it is the best option ever to use our digital channels. Ladies and gentlemen, when you have decided that now you want to register for VAT according to all the information, ensure that you submit all the requirements which proves to SARS that you are ready. You just don't decide that you are ready. Submit evidence to SARS that you are ready. If you want to register for VAT and you are a company, you need to provide registration certificate. You need to provide certified IDs of the directors. More importantly, should be the director whom is going to be appointed as the public officer on our system. That will be the person whom SARS is going to be communicating with on tax matters of your business. You need to have the proof of address, which is valid, not older than 3 months. You submit it to SARS, the one for the business together with the one for the public officer. Most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, you need to provide us with proof of income. The proof of income will be in the bank statements in the form of transactions already made in the bank statement together with the invoices. And the invoices which you are submitting should be speaking to the bank statement. The bank statement should not be an old bank statement. It should be the recent bank statements where you are giving us proof that indeed by the time you request registration, you have got money which is being deposited into your account. The invoices must support the transactions which are in your bank account. And ladies and gentlemen, I need to emphasize that please do not just register for VAT because of you just want to have the VAT number. Because of you should be actually be in a position to can carry the responsibilities which I have indicated. And you should be in the position to give us proof that you indeed qualify to register for VAT. That proof, ladies and gentlemen, is all what I have explained to you. And also, please make it a point that you don't register a VAT with information which is not valid. For an example, let's take in businesses where you would want to register for VAT, but in actual fact, the money which is in your bank statement, it's not from any other activity where you can declare to SARS. I'm gonna give an example. You register for, a person wants to register for VAT, company C, a taxpayer or a trader of company C wants to register that company for VAT. It has got two directors, Director B and Director C. And when you get to look for the proof of income, which is showing in the bank statement, the income is coming from the company where the Director A is the sole director of that. So it means this director, who is part of the company which wants to register for VAT, is the one who is doing business with. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not acceptable because that is a connected person. It is like you taking money from your right pocket and putting it on your left pocket. Money is circulating within yourself. You would remember that I emphasized that the business should be continuing, but it can be continuing within your cycle. You should be having a business where people are also buying. If it is a restaurant, it should indicate that there is people who are coming in there, enjoying their meals, having their drinks, then we'll see that on the cash register. So all other traders and taxpayers who want to register for business should ensure that all aspects are taken into account. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to move to the VAT filing categories. These are the categories or the periods which is on our system for you, to submit the returns with. We have got 5 categories, ladies and gentlemen, which you can submit your returns with. We have got category A until category E. Category A and B are the same. The only difference is that category A deals with the odd months, while category B deals with the even months. The odd months, I'm talking about January, March, up to November. The even months, I'm talking about February, April, June, up to December. But for these 2 periods or 2 categories, you as a taxpayer or trader, you have to submit the return once in every 2 months. That is why I said they are the same. They differ only with the odd and the even numbers. Category C, which is our 3rd category. This is the period where the taxpayer or a trader is required to submit their return every month in a year, which means for 12 months, you're going to submit 12 returns. In this period, it is where you have got a taxable supply, which is likely to exceed 30 million rand in the 12 months. Then that is when you can qualify to register on category C. Category D, it is in this category where you submit only 2 returns in a year. The first return should be submitted in the first 6 months, which end in February, and the other return must be submitted on the last day of August. So it's 2 returns, February and August, on the last days of it. And this category, ladies and gentlemen, mostly applies to the farmers and those farmers who made a taxable income of less than 1.5 million rand. Our last category is category E. It is in this category where the taxpayer is required to submit one return in 12 months. So just 1 return. And this, ladies and gentlemen, mostly it's being used by the trust and other specific companies. So these are the 5 periods which you can opt to submit your returns with. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize the fact that you must know that submission of the returns is very important. It is crucial for you to ensure that you submit your returns. Even if in a case where there is no taxable supplies which has been made, you still have got to submit that 0 return. Also, in instances where the difference between your input tax and the output tax is 0, you still have got to submit. You must bear in mind that the purpose of submitting returns is not necessarily for you to either pay or get a refund, but to make sure that you declare all your supplies which you would have made. So even though you break even, or I should say there is nothing which you can pay or get a refund on, it is also important for you to submit that return. You must remember, ladies and gentlemen, that submission of the returns will put you in a very good status where you have got to bid for the tenders, or you want to ask for a financial injection into your companies. Most institutions, if not all, will require you to provide them with proof that you are compliant with SARS by giving them the tax clearance or the tax compliance certificate. So you don't want to get surprises where you are expecting to get money, or you are expecting to be given a tender and you are just informed on the last minute that you can't be given that because of you are non-compliant. So ensure that you don't skip any period which you have got to submit your returns to. You do that timeously. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to explain to you the process on how you should pay over the VAT which you collected from the returns which you submitted, as I was indicating earlier. The returns, we call them the VAT 201. Those are when you make your declaration. So now, after you submit those declarations, you should be having some monies which you collected in the form of VAT as a SARS agent to pay it over to us. Now I'm going to explain to you the process on how you can make those payments. Manual submissions of return must be submitted together with payments for VAT on or before the 25th of the following month after the end of the period. Now I'm talking about the manual submission and the payment. They must be done on or before the 25th of the month. It doesn't matter if you have paid through EFT. If you submit your returns manually, that you must note, ladies and gentlemen, if you submit your returns manually, your payment date and submission date is on or before the 25th of the month. Also, when you submit your returns on e-filing, but you opt to make a payment over the counter at the bank, your submission date is also on the 25th of the, on or before the 25th of the month. Why is it like that? It's because of you have made a payment not online. And that is most of the problem, ladies and gentlemen, because most of our traders and taxpayers wonder why are they getting penalties, because they understand that they did submit their return online or on e-filing, but forgetting that they did decide to pay the money over the counter, not online. So please, ladies and gentlemen, ensure that when you submit your returns on e-filing, you also make a payment on e-filing. Did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that when you make a payment and submit on e-filing, your submission due date is on the last day, that is on the 30th or the 31st of the month, not the 25th like the others who submit manually. So it is very important, ladies and gentlemen, to take advantage and use our digital platforms so that you can be able to get a relief with regard to the admin burdens which is encountered by the people who are submitting or making payments manually. When I was explaining to you, ladies and gentlemen, let me try to make it simpler for you to understand it when I talk about the on or before the 25th of the month of the next 25th of the month following the one which you submitted your return. I will give you an example. Let's say you are in category B, period. That is where you are submitting your returns on even periods. You are submitting your return for June, and you are doing it manually, or you are doing it on e-filing but paying manually. It means that when you submit that return for June, the payment and the submission date is on or before the 25th of July. Because you are submitting for June, you pay in July, but it should be on or before the date of the 25th. You must realize, ladies and gentlemen, that the 25th is almost like the third week of the month. And most of our debtors, or most of the people whom you do business with, they will not be able to pay their debt or their monies which they are supposed to give it to you before the end of the month. Because why? They're also waiting for their financial finances to be up to a particular status before they can pay. So as I indicated to you that when you submit on e-filing, it will be the end of the month. You can take this advantage that luckily by the time you make a payment on the last day of the month, you would have probably received all the monies which is due to you. Then you don't have to dig in one pocket where it wasn't supposed to be for you to can pay the money over to SARS, because in actual fact, what you are using was not meant for the payment of VAT. So one way or the other, you could be crippling your business. So ladies and gentlemen, please ensure that you take advantage and use our digital platforms. It will relieve you from all the burdens of putting pressure on you. It is very important, ladies and gentlemen, that you submit your returns on e-filing, as I've indicated. And I must inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that our system, e-filing system, it's very easy to operate. Don't be scared of it. It's very easy and it is user-friendly. The terminology, the language, it is the language which we all understand, and it can be very easy for you to work on it. And in order for the payment to be successfully and correctly allocated, you must use the PRN number, which is going to be showing on your return when you submit it. That number, that unique number is 19 digits, and it will be showing on your VAT 201 when you submit your return. You need to use that number because of the monies have to be correctly allocated. If your payment period is the 25th and the 25th falls on a public holiday or a weekend, payment has to be made by the previous business day, because also Saturdays are not considered as business days. Please inquire from your bank whether a same-day transfer is made to SARS. If not, you must make the transfer earlier to ensure that the money is into the SARS bank account on the 25th. Otherwise, it is going to be, that payment is going to be considered as a late payment, because by the time SARS was expecting it, it wasn't there. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you must know that 10% can be imposed on you for penalty on the late payment. And it is not only 10%, also monthly interest as the prescribed rate can be charged on the amount which you are supposed to pay. So now it is going to be the amount which you are paying plus 10% and plus the interest for the other months when you are not able to pay those amounts. So it is better that you ensure that you pay on the correct date to avoid all these, ladies and gentlemen. Where also there is insufficient funds into your account and you want to make a payment, ladies and gentlemen, 10% interest, 10% penalty, 10% penalty, it is imposed on it. For example, let's take for example that you were actually supposed to pay 30,000 Rand as the VAT to SARS, but by the time you make a payment, you only have got 25,000 Rand. It means you are short 5,000 Rand. So what happens is that because the amount is not adequate, you will be imposed with 10% penalty because of insufficient or inadequate amount which you have paid. Therefore, to avoid penalties and interest as I've outlined, kindly adhere to the time frames for the submission of the VAT returns and most importantly, the payments. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to move to the process on how you can claim your refunds. If a taxpayer is entitled to a refund, SARS is required to pay it within 21 business days of receiving the correctly completed VAT return. Correctly completed VAT return, ladies and gentlemen, underline the word correctly. Refund is due in a case where the input tax is greater or more than the output tax during a tax period. If refund is not paid within 21 business days, SARS will have to pay interest at a prescribed rate on the amount which is refundable. If your tax return is under audit for a specific period, please ensure that you submit those returns, those supporting documents for that return, because refund can only be given to you or released when the audit is finalized. So to speed up the audit to be done within a prescribed time, ensure that you submit the supporting documents. And I need to indicate, ladies and gentlemen, to you that when you submit your returns on e-filing, you would be automatically seeing that after you submit on the system, your return is routed for an audit. So what I can advise you to do, ladies and gentlemen, don't wait for SARS to request documents from you. You already know that a specific period is routed for an audit. Rather submit the supporting documents already on the case for the audit so that it has got to be finalized timeously. But there will be instances where then you haven't submitted the returns. Sorry, you haven't submitted the supporting documents. Remember, the returns already submitted, but now it's routed for an audit. And then the SARS need you to submit the supporting documents to verify the information which you declared on those returns. If it happens that the time comes when you haven't submitted those documents, letters will be sent to you where they are reminding you of those supporting documents which you need to submit. So because of already you would have compiled your schedule of input and output by the time you are submitting the returns, the best way for you to do when you submit a return, you realize it's routed for an audit, automatically upload that schedule, upload the invoices, upload any other additional information which you would want to make SARS aware with, because you would better understand what is it that you have claimed. Why is there a difference? If there is, why is there the fluctuation of maybe the amount there now your input is higher than the previous periods, or any other difference which could have been picked? You will know better what happened in that period. So whatever supporting documents on the information you provided, it is better to upload it so that SARS can be aware of whatever changes you made and realize where are those changes coming from. Supporting documents will be able to can be viewed also on e-filing, as I've indicated to you that this period needs supporting documents. So supporting documents, as I'm indicating to you, I'm going to emphasize this, ladies and gentlemen, for the supporting documents, because of more often than not, our taxpayers and traders wonder why their refund is taking long because of not knowing what could be the problem. So I'm emphasizing the issue of supporting documents so that you know that it is more often than not an issue which retard or delay the refund to come out. One other aspect, ladies and gentlemen, which delays the refund to be paid out can be instances where there is invalid banking details on our system, or there's no banking details at all. Instances whereby there is outstanding returns for the previous periods, while you have claimed the refund on a particular period. Like, for example, you would have a return where you have submitted it for March, only to find that January and last year or the previous year of November, there is outstanding return. The March period where you are supposed to get your refund, it will never be released up until you have submitted your previous return. So your returns must be up to date before your refund can be released. One other aspect which can delay the refund to be paid out, it is where there is outstanding monies on other tax types which you have registered for. For example, if you are registered for income tax and you have got a debt on income tax, or you are registered for pay-as-you-earn and you have got a debt on it, SARS will never issue out that refund because there are outstanding monies on your income tax account and also on your pay-as-you-earn account. So ensure that you have paid everything else up, you are up to date before the monies can be refunded to you. When relevant supporting documents are submitted upon the receiving of the letter sent to you, SARS will acknowledge it, and then after finalizing the audit, then the refund will be issued if there is no any other hiccups. Please ensure that follow-up letters which are coming to you, you attend to them timeously. Why am I saying timeously, ladies and gentlemen? Is because of upon receiving of your supporting documents, SARS is only going to count the 21 days from that time. Remember, previously I was indicating to you that SARS has got an obligation to release your refund within 21 days. But our 21 days, we count it from the day we received your supporting documents. That is why I kept on emphasizing the issue of supporting documents. You can also go into our SARS e-filing. Now I'm bringing another advantage to you that you should really go and register for e-filing. You can view on e-filing on the dashboard the reasons why your refund is taking time or is not being released yet, because on that icon, it is where the refund status is displayed. You will obviously see the reasons why your refund is not being paid out. In that, you can remedy that and make sure that you avoid more delays by submitting what is supposed to be sent through to us. And in that, your refunds will be paid in time. Ladies and gentlemen, SARS acknowledge the fact that you small, medium, micro-sized businesses, you solely depend on the cash flow which is in your bank or the money which is just in there, because there is no proper, or I should say more monies which you are getting from any other spheres. You depend on what you have. So we will gladly want to assist you that you get your refund as soon as you can, so that it doesn't hamper the progress of your business. It doesn't have to make your business to suffer at some stages where you cannot even run because you don't have any funds. And on the other side, you are waiting for the refund, which is due to you from SARS. So we want you to also help you that you run smoothly and ensure that your businesses are actually growing. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm moving to the objections and the appeals. In this aspect, ladies and gentlemen, it is where you are aggrieved or you are not happy with the outcome of the assessment. That is what you would have declared on your VAT 201. If you are not happy with what is showing there, you have got an opportunity. SARS is giving you an opportunity to object, but there are rules which you need to follow on it. If you have received an assessment and you do not agree with the contents of the assessment, you have got an opportunity to lodge an objection within 30 days from the date you received that assessment. And if it happens that you're still not happy with the outcome of the objection, you have got 30 days to lodge an appeal. It is very important to stick to these timeframes, ladies and gentlemen, to avoid the objections and the appeals which you lodge with SARS and they get invalidated, because more often than not, those are the reasons which invalidates your objections and the appeal, the timeframes. Please stick to the timeframes. I also need to highlight to you, ladies and gentlemen, that you cannot object to increase the input tax for a specific period. If you are not happy with that period, you made a mistake, maybe the capturing error, where you wanted to put a different amount and you left maybe a zero or something, then you want to increase that input tax. You cannot do it with an objection. The best way for you to correct that is to declare it and claim it on the next period. One other aspect which you need to take cognizance of when you do the objections, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can only object on the assessments which are revised by SARS. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm moving to the deregistration process, as I've outlined to you from the beginning of our presentation. A vendor may apply for cancellation of registration if the sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. A vendor may apply for cancellation of registration if the value of taxable supply is less than 1 million rand of the threshold of compulsory registration. Remember, we said for you to qualify to register for compulsory VAT, then it means your taxable supply should be over 1 million rand in 12 months. So if it happens that at a period of time, while you are running your business, you realize that you are not meeting that requirement anymore, your taxable supplies are not coming to that amount, you can opt to deregister for VAT. You can also opt to deregister for VAT where the enterprise closes down and will not commence anymore. Also, businesses which can opt to deregister or cancel their registration for VAT is those businesses which decide to migrate to turnover tax, which is also a good idea for that. You must remember, ladies and gentlemen, that when you register for turnover tax, you already registered for turnover tax. It is not compulsory for you to have VAT. It is upon you to opt or elect if you want to register for VAT. So if you are previously registered for VAT and you want to migrate to turnover tax, you can also go through this process of cancelling your VAT registration. How to do the cancellation of the VAT registration. Complete and submit a VAT 123 form where reasons of the registration have to be captured there. You need to clearly state why you want to deregister for VAT. In instances where, ladies and gentlemen, you realize that probably the space which is showing on the VAT 123, it's so limited or small that it doesn't give you the opportunity to clearly indicate the reasons why you want to deregister. You are at liberty to attach a letter to your form 123 so that it can clearly state the reasons why you want to deregister or cancel your VAT number. When you exit it, you must make sure that you declare the input and the output of the final tax period. By the time you want to deregister, if you want to deregister your VAT, let's say in August, ensure that that period when you were supposed to submit that return and you are probably registered for category A, it would mean that for that period of August, you need to submit the VAT 201 for August and pay what you would have collected from that period before you request to be deregistered, because you have got to be up to date when you deregister for VAT. Remember, SARS cannot take you out of the VAT register if you still have got returns and monies which are owing. Ensure that everything is up to date. Payments must be made. Remember that money for VAT, as you are a SARS agent, it doesn't belong to the business. It is the money which you collected to pay it over to SARS. So whatever you would have collected, ensure that even before you request for cancellation of the VAT, you pay it over. You submit your returns to be up to date. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to indicate to you that as you would have gone through all the process of registering and you got your notice of registration, which was, ladies and gentlemen, I know some of us already are registered for VAT, but they have got that information. It is that certificate which you used to call VAT 123. Presently, we call it a notice of registration because it is giving you that VAT number. You mustn't get confused with what is the VAT the notice of registration and the VAT 123. It is one and the same document. So upon receiving it, and then you were making the submissions of your VAT 201, you made payments, everything else, you need to ensure that you carry all the responsibilities as I have outlined them at the beginning. You need to ensure that you include the VAT in all your prices, charge that VAT and collect it, pay it over to SARS because you are an agent of SARS. You are representing SARS to collect that. And then what you need to do also, ensure that you issue a valid tax invoice for all the supplies which you made. But what is most important, ladies and gentlemen, ensure that you issue only one invoice. You cannot duplicate the tax invoices. Only one invoice should be issued, and that invoice should be a valid tax invoice. It is important to ensure that that invoice is valid. Why? Because valid invoices are the only ones which are acceptable to SARS when they've got to validate your declarations. When you submit supporting documents for the periods under audit, they require the invoices from you. They cannot accept the invoices which are invalid. That is why also, ladies and gentlemen, most of your periods which would be referred to audit, you'll realize that the invoices get disallowed or they don't take them into consideration. It is because those invoices will be invalid. And then what is it that we need for an invoice to be valid? we say for an invoice to be considered as valid, it must have the words tax invoice in brackets. You don't have to put brackets. I'm just saying brackets because I was mentioning that it must be clearly stating the words tax invoice on it. The name, the address, and the VAT registration number of the supplier must be showing on that invoice. The name, the address, and the VAT registration number also of the recipient must be there on that invoice. The serial number and the date of issue must be there. The full and proper description of the goods and services which you supplied must be shown. It must also include the quantity or the volume of goods supplied or services which you rendered. The price and also the VAT must be stated in that invoice. That is when we can safely say this is a valid tax invoice. So please ensure that even if you get an invoice from other businesses, ensure that the type of invoice which they are issuing to you, it's a valid tax invoice. Otherwise, it is going to disadvantage you because of it is not going to be allowed or accepted as a valid invoice with SARS. Also, your responsibility is to maintain adequate records for the supplies which you have made. When it is required for you to give proof of what you have declared, ladies and gentlemen, on your returns, there must be proof to substantiate that. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm also going to overemphasize the issue that as our small, medium, micro-sized businesses, it is totally not an obligation for you to register for VAT unless you have exceeded a 1 million rand. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, our objective and our objective and our wish for all the small businesses is for them to be prosperous, is for them to grow their business, is for them to make money, uplift the country's economy, and change the life of other people by employing more people into their businesses and ensuring that also your lifespan is prolonged by the joys you'll be getting from your business. You should make sure that you don't get a lot of stress from your businesses. So also SARS is considering that. So enjoy having your businesses and running it without complicating it by unnecessary admin burdens, which is going to require you to get the services of the accountants, the services of the tax practitioners, even though you not necessarily need them. Because to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, compilation of the documents for VAT submissions is complex in a way that it will need the people who have got that expertise to do it. And automatically, it means if you need to get a person with the expertise, you have got to pay that person. It is money coming out of your business. So more, if it's possible, ladies and gentlemen, just stick to the taxes which are mostly relevant to you, which will make you to be compliant without you registering for VAT, even if it's not necessary. Go out there, bid for tenders, get money, get financial assistance, because ladies and gentlemen, a VAT registration is not a license for you to get a tender. You can still get tenders even if you are not registered for VAT. As long as you are compliant with all your tax types, you are compliant by submitting all the returns on the tax types which you have submitted, you still can compete with large and big businesses, even though you are a small business. Also, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you take advantage of our online systems services, where you have got to log in while you are at any place. You can be at your business, you can be at home, then you can run your business even without you visiting the branch, because it is not really necessary. SARS has made it easy for you to comply by doing everything in your pocket. You can just take your cell phone and have SARS in your pocket, do the transaction, submit the returns without visiting the branch, ladies and gentlemen. Please also, ladies and gentlemen, if you still need that, you want more information on VAT, on other aspects which could not have been touched or answered your questions today, you can visit our website and download the VAT 404 guide for vendors, and that's where you can get more information. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to be reminded that SARS do care for you, and SARS also wants you to be prosperous. Hashtag your tax matters. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for gracing us with your presence tonight. Over to you, Program Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kgobokwe. That was detailed and very informative. Thank you once more. I am sure our viewers have an idea of what needs to be done by whom and when. Kindly note that this webinar is recorded and will be uploaded on YouTube. Now we will cross over to question and answer session led by Mr. Vikash Ganpath. Vikash Ganpath joined SARS in 1999 and spent most of his 22-year career in KwaZulu-Natal region within taxpayer services. He holds a Bachelor of Commerce from UNISA and an MBA degree from University of KwaZulu-Natal. Vikash is currently the branch manager at the Umhlanga branch office in KZN. Before I hand over to him, kindly be reminded that we value your feedback, so please don't forget to complete the feedback survey attached to your invitation and send it back to us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Program Director. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Daphne, for that extremely informative presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, during this section of the webinar, we have a panel that would answer various questions based on the feedback that we've received from you guys. However, before I introduce the panel, can I please introduce you to Lucky Malautsi. Lucky is the operations manager from Customs, and she will brief us on the salient features between VAT and Customs. Thank you for joining us, Lucky. Over to you.
Good evening, colleagues. Good evening to the listeners, our traders. Indeed, it is a good evening wherein we'll be talking about our tax matters, hashtag your tax matters. I'm just quickly going to take you to our customs environment where we import and export our goods. Our journey will be via the land, rail, air, and sea. We will be importing or exporting the goods via those 4 modes of transport. The South African Customs VAT is administered in terms of the VAT Act 89 of 1991. The Customs VAT, it is levied on our standard rate, which is 15% in the customs environment as well. And then that is VAT that is paid during the importation of goods. Irrespective of whether the importer is a registered VAT trader or not, the VAT is payable when we import the goods into South Africa. However, being a registered vendor, being a registered VAT trader, as it has been previously encouraged by my colleague, you have an advantage of declaring your VAT that we have paid during the importation, of which that declaration that you make, that you have paid a certain amount of VAT during your importation of goods, it can favor you when you have submitted your output and input declaration on your monthly return submissions. And as a trader, you are expected in terms of the VAT Act to charge VAT. To charge VAT when you sell your goods, to your foreign clients, that will be our clients that is coming from all over the world who visit our beautiful country, and then they buy the goods with the explanation that they will be exporting the goods. If you have such clients, our foreign clients, you are expected to charge VAT when you sell the goods to them, because those clients will be the ones who are responsible for the exportation of the goods. And then to support them, the foreign clients, they stand to benefit to claim
Vikesh. Vikesh, we seem to be having a challenge with the network from
Yeah,
Lucky.
okay. So it seems that we've lost Lucky.
Yes.
So let me continue and let me introduce you to the other members of the panel. From VAT Accounts, we have Tanya Enslin. Tanya, welcome. We then have Claudia Archibald from Branch Operations, Mutangwa Ramabulana from VAT Audits, and Ashwin Prasad from VAT Legal. Hi, everybody. So let me kick off some of the questions coming through. We received a question from Maurice de Vries. So he filed on the 26th, he paid on the 26th, but he still got a penalty. Tanya, any idea why?
EFT payments sometimes take a bit longer also to get onto the system. And that seems to be a problem, but Maurice can go to his e-filing and he can submit a request for remission to us with that, and he can attach a proof of payment there to it, and then we can look at the situation and why there was penalties and interest charged on his account.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Tanya. Mutangwa, there's another question from Maurice. So he missed an invoice in a prior period. Can he submit it into the next VAT return? Your mic, Mutangwa. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, just repeat your questions. He missed including an invoice in the current submission.
Yeah, so can he submit it? Yeah, so the question was, he missed an invoice in a prior submission. He now wants to include it. Can he submit it in the new VAT 201?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. Generally, the VAT Act allows vendors some latitude in terms of time to submit or their claims on the expenses that they've incurred. On the expenses that they've incurred, they are more than willing to actually include those invoices that they might have actually not included. They have about a 5-year window period where from the date of issue where they can actually submit such a claim on expenses. But that said, let me just also clarify their obligation in terms of the sales that they have actually received. They have an obligation, depending on how they registered for the FedEx, to declare their sales in the respective period that they've actually done the sales on. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Otherwise, they are more than welcome to actually submit in the subsequent period. The obligation would be to clearly indicate that the invoices were never claimed before, and it's our obligation as SARS to actually make sure that we're comfortable that they have not actually submitted the same invoices before.
Okay, thank you, Mutangwa. Ashwin, let me pose the next question to you, and it's let me quote it. So the client says, I'm about to quote, or the trader says, I'm about to quote a client from Kenya about a vacation package in Cape Town, and his business is registered for VAT. So he wants to know if he should include VAT in his invoice, and will his clients be allowed to claim a deduction while they're returning back home from South Africa. Ashwin?
Thank you, Vikash, and good evening, all. In addition to VAT being an indirect tax, it's also a consumption tax. And VAT is charged at 15% when consumption takes place in South Africa. So in the scenario at hand, the Kenyan client will be enjoying a vacation package in Cape Town, which basically means that he's going to consume that package in South Africa. Therefore, the quote should include VAT at 15%. When it comes to the Kenyan client actually being able to claim the VAT, he will not be able to claim that VAT because he's not registered for South African VAT. However, that being said, if the client purchases over and above the vacation package any goods in South Africa and is charged 15% on those goods, and if the Kenyan client will export or remove those goods to Kenya, he is allowed to claim a refund of that 15% from the VAT refund administrator when he leaves South Africa. Thank you, Vikash.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. Let me direct the next question to Claudia. So Claudia, what sort of documents do we need to have in place in order to register for VAT? Certainly, when the client walks into the branch, he needs to have certain things in place before we'd give him a VAT registration. And could you just expand on that, please?
Good evening, viewers. When registering for VAT, you will need the following documents. Proof of turnover. Your proof of turnover must comply with the following. For compulsory registrations, at the end of any month where the value of taxable supplies made by a person in a period of 12 months exceed 1 million rand, or at the commencement of any month where the value of the taxable supplies in terms of a contract agreement will exceed 1 million in 12 months. A person may also apply for voluntary registration if that person is carrying on any enterprise and the total value of taxable supplies made in the preceding period of 12 months have exceeded 50,000, or intends to carry on any enterprise from a specific date where the enterprise will be supplied to him or her as a going concern and the total value of the taxable supplies made by the supplier of the ongoing concern, have exceeded 50,000. And lastly, with the turnover for voluntary, if a person continuously and regularly carry on an activity which consequent in the nature of an activity can result in taxable supplies being made for consideration only after a period of time where the taxable value of the taxable supplies made are expected to exceed 50,000. In addition to the turnover, we will need the company registration document, that would be our CIPC document, certified copies of all members' IDs, proof of address for the company not older than 3 months, proof of address for the appointed public officer not older than 3 months, an original bank statement for the company, and if represented by a practitioner, a power of attorney will be required.
Okay, good. So you basically looking at turnover and taxable supplies, your primary source document would be an invoice or a bank statement.
Yes.
So what happens if I buy a franchise or I'm awarded, a job where I have a specific contract, but I haven't started trading yet? Would you consider that?
Okay, for a franchise, it's a signed agreement. We will accept it as proof of turnover. And for tenders, if a tender has not been awarded, we cannot actually register the client for VAT due to the fact that they have not provided us any proof of turnover and has not met the provisions of the VAT Act.
Okay. Thank you so much, Claudia. Sorry, generally, what is the turnaround time for the VAT application?
Okay, for VAT application, if all the requested requirements have been submitted, we will process and finalize an application within 2 business days. If there's a site inspection selected, we will finalize and process that application within 21 business days.
Thank you, Claudia. Mutangwa, the next question came through via email earlier, so let me pose this to you. It's an audit-related question. It goes like this. We have submitted VAT verification documents on the 20th of September, 2021. To date, we have not received any progress on this case. We have been sent back and forth by SARS call center, and nobody can advise why our refund has been held back for such an extensive amount of time. Can you perhaps elaborate on what causes delays in refunds, please?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. First, I would like to apologize for the undue delay that the taxpayers actually experienced. I would touch on possible scenarios that can lead to refunds being held back for probably a bit longer than ordinary would. Generally, as an organization, we aspire to actually conclude all the refunds within the 21 days if all the information is submitted. And if it happens that a vendor is selected for verification, we still aspire to actually, we have an obligation to actually attend it within 21 days after the submission of the actual supporting documentation. The key thing is the time that we ultimately receive the complete set of supporting documentation that will enable us to actually apply our minds to the claim that is being made. So if for example, the initial request which would be generally automated. It will actually specify in broad terms the need for the taxpayer to either rectify their submission or submit supporting documentation to justify their claims. In that event, then what we would then do is we would actually expect that the vendor would actually receive correspondence via our automated system. It is crucial, I might actually advise our SMMEs that they need to make sure that their contact details, standing contact details with us is actually the latest one that they are reachable on. If there is a third party that's doing their submission on their behalf and they are comfortable with the third party attending to the correspondence thereon, those contacts should be valid contacts so that when we submit, when we request supporting documentation, it will be a quicker response or turnaround for them. That is one of the reasons why in some instances it will take a bit longer for refunds to be addressed. If the contact details attached there is actually not the latest one. It takes a while for them to actually then respond to our requests. So it is advisable that they need to keep their standing data updated. And when they request, when they submit the batch of supporting documentation, during the reviews, it is possible that if the set of information received is not sufficient for whoever is looking at it to apply their mind and conclude on a case, there is a possibility that there would actually be additional requests for supporting documentation. And if there is additional requests, they will still be afforded an opportunity then to actually upload those specific additional information to enable us to conclude on a case. So they, over and above keeping the standing data current, they should also look out for any correspondence from us relating to their submission, so that we can actually then, if there is any need to clarify any of these things that we are requesting, we will be able to actually contact them, and we would actually be able to actually afford them ample opportunity to actually quickly respond to our request. So that actually is very helpful in terms of speeding up the process of attending to the refunds. So in some instances, maybe if I may just offer an advice, we as SARS, we don't know more than the taxpayer about the nature of their business. So by default, it's expected that if the taxpayer is submitting something to us, they are aware why certain claims are done, certain transactions they've actually occurred, and then it's actually prudent for the taxpayers to provide us with all the relevant information that will enable us to actually conclude their submission. So, like for example, if I'm to just throw some of the possible scenario that they can actually supplement the information, over and above requesting these supporting schedules, invoices, and contracts, or anything that actually explain their claim, they can actually give us a brief overview of their business. How is their business structured? How is the business financed? And how are they actually contracting for the transaction that they're claiming? Like for example, like your supporting information regarding to commitments that they made, so that we can actually satisfy ourselves and speedily attend to finalizing their submissions. So that in the main, it remains the one of the reasons why there could be delays in attending to certain refunds.
Okay. Thank you, Matano. The next question comes from Don. Okay, he wants to know, can I use my VAT reference number as my payment reference number? No, you can't, Don. So your payment reference number, as Stephanie said, needs to be a 19-digit reference number. It is generated once you complete your VAT 201 return. Okay. So that leads me to the next question, Tanya. So what happens if somebody pays it into the wrong period or it's unallocated? What do they do, or how do they rectify that?
What they will normally do is they would actually, via our normal channels, email, branch office, or the call center, request a VAT payment adjustment in writing, of course, with the proof of payment in order for us to allocate it to the correct periods. They can also do a VAT payment adjustment on e-filing, which will also come through to us to finalize, and then it gets allocated to the correct period.
Okay, thanks. I see Lucky is still not on, so I won't ask any customs questions. Ashwin, back to you. I've got a question here. So I started a business last year, let's say trucking. I bought the truck, business was bad, I couldn't make turnover, so I couldn't be registered for VAT. Things are better this year. I'm meeting the minimum threshold, say 50,000 rands, and I registered for VAT in November. Can I go back and claim VAT input taxes for all my expenses prior to my current registration?
Yes, thanks again, Vikash, and a very interesting question. The VAT law allows the trader, once it is registered, to claim back the VAT on assets that it acquired before registration. The asset should still be used in the business at the time that the time of registration. The VAT that will be claimed will be at either the lower of the cost or the open market value of the asset. The golden rule, however, is that the business must have sufficient records to support that claim. But in short, that VAT Act allows that asset to be claimed as the VAT to be claimed on that asset once the business is registered. Thank you.
Is there a maximum period, or can you go back 5 years, 10 years? How would it work?
Well, when it comes to this particular aspect of the law, it's actually referred to as adjustments in the VAT Act. And when it comes to these type of adjustments, there is no prescription. However, we must be mindful that once you put a claim through, it must be supported with documentation. And there's a prescription rule for documentation, which is 5 years. Thank you.
A follow-up question, Ashwin, similar. So the question is, can diesel registration be backdated?
Yes, just a point to highlight that the diesel registration, the diesel refund system is actually not governed by the VAT law, it's governed by the excise law. but it is administered through the VAT system. Therefore, it is linked to a VAT registration. So when it comes to registering for diesel refund, you can go back to a maximum of 2 years to have a diesel registration valid.
2 years, okay.
It's just a point, it's just a point to note that it's slightly different from VAT. The VAT prescription rule is 5 years, but for diesel, it's 2 years. Thank you, Fika.
Okay, thank you so much. Claudia, back to you. A question that came through today. Can a PB or a public benefit organization or a non-profit organization apply for VAT?
Yes, but a welfare organization is defined in paragraph A of the definition of a public benefit organization. That's section 30 of the Income Tax Act. However, not all non-profitable organizations do qualify as a welfare organization for VAT registration purposes. So the welfare organization that does qualify is welfare and humanitarian, that is care and counseling for abused children or homeless children, healthcare, land and housing, education and development, conservation and environment, and animal welfare. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matonga, another question I'd like to pose to you also came through this afternoon. What is the process of claiming the interest on delayed refunds? Or will SARS automatically pay the interest on delayed refunds?
Okay, the process is you need to submit a remission for late payment interest. That has got to be in writing. You can use all the various channels that you can actually use to actually submit such. What happens would actually then we would actually review your claim and your submission against what our record says. The process involves reviewing the lapse of the 21 days, for example. If in at any given point in time, let's say, for example, you submitted your claim on the 1st, and on the 21st, on the 10th, we actually then requested additional information. You took your time and you didn't actually submit it. Maybe you submitted on the 30th. So we would actually then review what you're claiming as a late payment in terms of the obligation, who had a vested obligation to attend to a matter. For example, the time that you have submitted, we have an obligation to review. So on that basis, then we'll calculate up until a point where should we require additional information, then that point stops. And then the interaction throughout the value chain, or at least the history of the case, would be reviewed. And in cases where delay was on our part, we would then compute those days, and then we would actually then submit it to a committee. A committee would review and ratify our decision or position, and then that would be processed, and then the vendor would actually be paid the late payment interest. But that is normally done on request, it's not automated.
Okay, thank you, Mark. A few more questions for you, Tanya. I have a credit on my unallocated account. What documents do I need to submit to have the credit refunded?
Okay, a written request needs to be submitted with proof of payment, and that needs to be submitted either through our email channel at the branch, or either at the SARS Call Centre. But it needs to have a proof of payment. Without a proof of payment, the refund will not be successful.
Okay. What if there's a debt outstanding on the taxpayer?
If there's a debt outstanding, they can request us to have the credit actually transferred to the outstanding debt. The same apply. It needs to be in a written request. The proof of payment must be attached, and then we can transfer it to the relevant outstanding debt across all taxes.
Okay, thank you. Ashwin, back to you. Common question that we receive in the branch. So, can I include VAT on my invoices while I'm waiting for a VAT number?
Yes, Vikash, very interesting question, this one. Invoices issued while you're waiting for your VAT registration number should not show VAT as a separate charge. Neither should the invoice show any indication that the invoice carries any VAT. However, that being said, if the trader is registering for VAT under the compulsory registration category, it is suggested that the VAT be built into the price. Now, what do you mean by built into the price means that it's not explicitly reflected as VAT or not explicitly indicated that VAT is on the tax invoice. And the reason for making this, this submission is that once the business receives its VAT registration number, and remember it's a compulsory registration, once it receives its VAT registration number, it will be required to account for VAT on that invoice to SARS. So basically, for example, if you have a business that entered into a contract and the value of the contract is 5 million rand, now immediately based on that value, you would place that registration under the compulsory registration category. And then that business or that trader will be liable for VAT on that 5 million rand. And he'll be liable to SARS. Therefore, it is suggested that the VAT be built into that 5 million rand. And this also prevents a negative cash flow in the hands of the trader because the price would already be inclusive of VAT, but not explicitly, as I explained earlier on, as opposed to the business funding that VAT from its own funds. So it's also, the suggestion also backs up a negative cash flow effect. But as I said, very interesting question, but in short, it should not be reflected on the tax invoice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Asha. Lucky, welcome back. Can you hear me? Okay, let me just pose some customs questions to you. Do I add VAT on the tax invoice of goods that I'm exporting to another country?
Thank you, Vikesh. My apology for that. I'm just having a little bit of rain where I am. I'll try to talk a little bit louder. As I said, when you are in control of the exportation of goods, that is direct export, the invoice should be zero rated. And all export documentation should be kept safe because they will be required when you have submitted your monthly tax return, where you have declared that you have directly exported the goods out of the country with a zero rated invoice. Thank you, Vikesh. I'm not sure if I was audible enough.
Yeah, you were. Thank you so much. So the follow-on question is, do I add VAT on the tax invoice of goods that my foreign customer is exporting to their country? And what advice do I give them?
Okay. If your foreign customers, they are in the goods from you and they will be responsible for the exportation of goods. So when you make a sale of goods to the foreign customers who are telling you that after this sale, I'm taking these goods out of the invoice should have a standard rated of 15% VAT on it. And then you need to encourage your customers that after they've exported the goods, they need to keep their export documentation safe because they can be able to claim for a VAT refund once they've reached their home. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lucky. Another question, Claudia, maybe I can pose to you. Can I change my VAT filing category? And how do I go about doing that?
Vikesh, yes, you can. A request for change of category can only be implemented from a future date. It cannot be backdated unless there's certain circumstances. If there was a capturing error done by SARS, but then the client needs to give proof that there was a capturing error. If the wrong if the circumstances of the vendor change and it is required for the vendor to be registered within another category, if a vendor must inform SARS in writing if there is a possible change in category, and SARS also can do this automatically, change you to category C if the taxable supplies exceeds 30 million in in a period of 12 months.
Okay, thank you. Ashwin, I just received a question from Maurice again. What is the definition of a valid tax invoice?
Yes, basically the VAT law provides for two types of tax invoices. You have a full tax invoice and you have an abridged tax invoice. And the difference between the two is you'll issue a full tax invoice if the price including VAT exceeds 5,000 Rand. And in order for that document to be valid as a tax invoice, you will have to have the words tax invoice, VAT invoice, or invoice clearly reflected on the document. You must have the name, address, and VAT registration number of the supplier on the document. And because it's a full tax invoice, you will also be required to have the name, VAT registration number, and address of the recipient, if the recipient is registered as a vendor. And then obviously you need to have a serialized number on the tax invoice together with the date of issue of that. You will also have to have a full and proper description of the goods and services that have been sold and supplied. You'll have to have the quantity and volume of the goods and services that are supplied. And then you will have to show the VAT on the tax invoice. Now, there's three ways of doing this. You can show the amount excluding VAT, the VAT amount, and the amount including VAT. Or you can show the amount including VAT with the statement that the amount includes VAT at 15%. Or you can show the amount excluding VAT and the VAT amount on the tax invoice. So that would qualify as a valid tax invoice in respect of a full tax invoice. The other type of tax invoice we have is an abridged tax invoice. And that tax invoice is issued where the price including VAT is less than 5,000 Rand. It basically has the same requirements I mentioned earlier, except that on an abridged tax invoice, you're not required to have the name, address, and VAT registration number of the supplier. Neither are you allowed to, or neither are you required to have a full and proper description, but you must have a description on the tax invoice. And then you don't need to show the quantity and volume of the goods and services that are supplied when it comes to an abridged tax invoice. There is another category of a tax invoice, and that is where the value or the amount including VAT is 50 Rand or less. Now, in that instance, you are not required to issue either a full tax invoice or an abridged tax invoice, but you must have any other document acceptable to the commissioner to support that, that supply or that sale. So an example of that would be a till slip that you would get from your supermarket showing that VAT is indeed charged on that sale. Thanks, Vikash.
Okay, thanks, Ashwin. Okay, that was basically the questions that came in earlier. Just two more I just want to touch on. Mr. Chrisel is talking about an e-filing issue, which is very specific, so we'll get back to him on that. Mr. Ramnath wants to know, are we recording this because he's on load shedding? Yes, we are. We'll give you further details. And I can see there's many questions that came in the Q&A. Unfortunately, we won't be able to answer it live because of time constraints, but we will get back in writing. The panelists will get back in writing and post it on the FAQ section on the internet. Let me hand you back to Gina, and she can take it from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ganpath. Thank you, panel of experts. Thank you so much. To all our viewers, kindly accept our apology for the poor network during Lucky's presentation. It was beyond our control. We apologize. As Mr. Ganpath said, if you still have questions, you can visit our SARS website on frequently asked questions, or you can post your comments or questions to contact us at sars.gov.za. That's contact us at sars.gov.za. It is possible to be compliant, and don't forget that hashtag your tax matters. Now I would like to hand over to Mr. Pranesh Rampal for closing remarks. Pranesh is the VAT leader in SARS. He has 26 years of experience, and during his tenure, he worked in various VAT administration portfolios, including audit, legal interpretation and rulings, VAT policy and legislation development, VAT legislative and product oversight. He is currently responsible for end-to-end VAT administrative process and works with a team of VAT experts to ensure an effective process in VAT administration. Pranesh is also a participant in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is OECD, Working Party 9 on consumption taxes. He was instrumental in co-developing and implementing South Africa's regime on VAT on foreign electronic services, including digital platforms. Over to you, Pranesh.
Thank you, Program Director. Apologize for the bad sound quality, experiencing a very severe thunderstorm. I hope you can hear me sufficiently well. But thanks, Program Director, for inviting me to one of the first VAT webinars that SARS is hosting. I admire the level of response to the survey that was put out to small and micro medium enterprises, seeking this sort of clarity as to whether SARS is simplifying the VAT world for them in their journey to become successful businesses. And it was really very enlightening to see the presentation made at a very elementary and simple level for the intended audience. However, I must admit that upon looking at some of the questions on the live chat, I've noted that the questions do have a certain level of complexity, which is heartwarming to see that some of our attendees are really wanting to know some of the intricacies of VAT. But at the same time, some of the questions that have been posed clearly allude to that there are some challenges in getting refunds on time, getting VAT registrations successfully done. And hopefully these will be escalated by the commentators to the email address provided so that these can be provided. But having said that, we seek to echo once again Tozi's statement at the opening address that the purpose of the seminar is really to give you a very clear and simple sense of clarity and certainty around some of the basic features of VAT, specifically for the intention of ensuring our small and medium and micro enterprises become voluntary compliant, as these set of explanations are designed to give you the ABCs of the VAT, holding that VAT in its basic framework imposes far more higher burdens than the normal income taxes. The frequency of filing, the number of nuanced rules that you've heard about this evening, as well as the number of questions relating to, for example, what are the salient features of a tax invoice, which something, if you don't get right, could land you in a state of non-compliance if those documents are not adhered to as prescribed by the rules in the VAT regime in South Africa. Some of my earlier thoughts on the presentation and the questions clearly lead to that registrations do give some problems, and Tozi has gladly provided some guidance on what documents you should upload, and more so, she's given some guidance in the chat to everybody that rather upload all your documents, before being asked to submit these within 21 days. It just augurs well to be proactive, to submit these documents much earlier than being reactive and waiting for SARS to request them. Over the next few years, SARS will be embarking on a process of modernization where we aim to simplify the VAT interactions between SARS and our traders so that you can focus more on your business and let SARS manage a lot of your compliance matters to make it more simpler, to make it more easier for you to understand the complexities and to harness on third-party data, as Tozi has suggested, to make your filing more simpler, to make your reconciliations more simpler. So we look forward to moving towards that journey in the next few years. But where we stand today is that we want to be on board with our stakeholders, namely our businesses and traders, holding your hand to some extent in giving you the basics of VAT. And I think well done to the presenters and to the panelists answering the questions. I think that the questions that have not been answered will also enlighten our attendees to an extent where they feel confident that these questions can be answered, if not during the webinar, but at some point after the webinar. But thank you for allowing me to close off with these remarks. It's always daunting to present one of the first VAT webinars, and we look forward to holding and hosting future VAT webinars on specific topics so that we can get the clarity and certainty to you, the taxpayer and the trader, so that your life becomes easier to ensure compliance to our law. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranesh. With those words of wisdom and encouragement, I want to thank all of you by dignifying us with your presence. Please do not forget to complete the survey to enable us to improve, and do not forget the due date for submission of PIT by the 23rd of November 2021. We hope that this webinar was fruitful and that you will join us in building this beautiful country by choosing to be compliant. Hashtag your tax matters. Blessed evening to all of you, and goodbye.
All your years of paying tax, thank you for every life you saved and every risk you braved. When you saw our healthcare workers on the front lines battling COVID, you rose to the occasion and gave them the tools to save lives. Without your tax compliance, we wouldn't be able to fight a good fight. When you saw our vulnerable communities, you provided for them. To all taxpayers and traders, thank you. Continue to pay your tax. Your tax matters.